Hello and welcome to round 7 of the BUSR Championship. We just had a couple of technical issues and now we are in Austria and heading out for Q1 now. So we've got Wilson coming up first out of the pits, coming down, trying to warm up his tyres, weaving awfully much down through the back straight.
Yes, obviously we missed the intro. We came on a little bit late, but Austria, of course, a fan favourite, I think, between the drivers and the spectators. Really good racing action, good potential for a lot of overtakes. I think qualifying could be very interesting with the potential track limit infringements that we could be seeing throughout this session. Only 14 this week. We do have 2 lobbies going on, which is why the numbers are slightly slower. But we do have the usual contenders that will be fighting it out for pole. The likes of Matamu, Cameron Searle, Dazan, Geek and Joe down at the bottom as well. Our 5 championship protagonists going into the penultimate round of the season with the Watch Wilson, who was invalidated straight away. That is not an ideal start for the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, we've got quite the lineup for tonight. Obviously, this being a sprint race weekend, we will be handing out points for the sprint and the Grand Prix itself, with 10 points for P1 going all the way down to 1 for P10 in the sprints, and 100 points for P1 in the Grand Prix going down to 66 for P10 and further. This will be a very interesting one, as we have currently Matanini leading the championship with Cameron Searle, Joe and Son and Geek trailing behind just by 80 points, and 80 points in this championship might sound like a lot, but in reality it's not, because it is 100 points for a race win.
He's retired.
And Geek has retired straight away.
So that throws a spanner in the works straight away, because that is one of the contenders for pole.
Well, he's got the sprint to make up positions here, and obviously this track lends itself to some very good overtaking opportunities down into turn 1 and 3. So might be a bit unfortunate for him, but he could claw some points back out from this. Probably a technical issue on his part, but that is the essence of sim racing sometimes.
Yeah, he's got to be careful when he makes his way back through the pack, because some drivers around the circuit can be a bit of a magnet. For instance, as Jaraki sets our first lap of the session with a 104.6, I think we should be seeing people in the middle 1 minute 3s, I would imagine, unless somebody has really been try-harding over the last week to prepare themselves for this race. Assassin slots in just under 0.2 of a second behind Jaraki in the Aston Martin.
A very interesting qualifying session here, with a lot of track limits probably going to be coming out from every driver, especially down through into the braking zone of turn 10. As you come out through turn 9, going to be people riding just a wheel over, not really noticing it, but it will happen, as happens in real life as well. You see Matinunu going quickest with a 104 dead. That's going to most likely be seen very quickly, as some of our drivers are preparing themselves for their flying laps.
It's definitely a solid banker lap, solid start to the session. We already see Dazan into the 1 minute 3s in the Red Bull, just under 0.1 of a second separating our top 2 at the moment. I'm expecting, because it is a short track, we should be seeing people very close come the end of our qualifying session. I think it should be a 4, maybe 5 and 6 way fight for pole position, because Jaraki is usually pretty quick, as are the 2 Mercedes drivers that we've got, although Tom Hug does go into 7th and last of our runners at the moment. A couple of people still in the pits. Joe, the main one, still in the garage. Cameron Searle slots into 3rd place in the AlphaTauri, 104.1. 2/10 covering our top 3 at the moment. The big gap back to Jaraki in 4th, half a second separating 3rd and 4th place with 12 minutes to go. And moving back into the pits as we see some yellow flags for people getting out of the way. That's going to be another challenge for people to try and overcome, because it is a bit of a narrow circuit. You've got to make sure you don't get caught up in too much traffic. The 2 Red Bulls swapping places on the circuit there, separated by 1.2, not 1.2, 9/10 of a second. Ice down in 6th on a 104.8. Be looking to try and challenge maybe for a top 5 in the race. There could be a bit of carnage going on later, and we should be expecting some safety cars because Austria always throws up some surprises. We see the Alfa Romeo returning to the pits. We're waiting to see what Joe can do, though, as Alfa in the McLaren is out for the very first time in the session. Joe, the big name, still in the garage, obviously trying to save a set of soft tyres. And what is interesting, I actually did a little preparation race for this a few hours ago, and the medium tyre, and I have to say first, I'm not amazing at this game, but I'd say I'm a pretty good standard. The medium tyres felt absolutely dreadful after about 10 laps, so that's something to potentially bear in mind here.
Yes, one of the things about this circuit is that the Sector 2 and the beginning of Sector 3 can really put some heat into those tyres, especially since you run some of the softest compounds in the Pirelli range around here, which will lend itself to a dear bit of overheating through the course of a lap. Especially with those medium tyres, they will get very hot very quickly. I always found that running the hards to the mediums on this circuit did lend itself to some better racing, especially in the latter stages of my races. Obviously, I haven't been playing it so much, but from what I do remember is that the hard tyres in this game did lend itself to some much better paces.
Well, the strategy is going to be interesting actually, because this is one of the few tracks where the one stop and the two stop, as Cameron Sell on a second push lap, does improve by 2.5 tenths to take provisional pole position from Dazen. I think that will change though, as Dazen and Matamu and Joe come out on a brand new set of soft tyres. But yeah, this is one of the few tracks where the delta between the one stop and the two stop isn't too significant, and we could see some split strategies if people are willing to roll the dice. Maybe somebody like Geek, who is going to be starting from last place, he could be the one to throw a spanner in the works come the Grand Prix and go for a different strategy. Jareki going for a second flying lap though, is purple in the middle sector and 2.5 tenths up, but I don't think he'll be challenging Cameron Sell unless this final sector is absolutely mega. We'll see what it is for the Alfa Romeo driver, who will be looking to consolidate fourth place with this second time lap of the session. Obviously, because it is a short track, you can get a lot of flying laps in, but I think this is going to be a semi-decent improvement for Jareki. It's a 4.3, improves by a third of a second. Stays fourth though, and is a little bit adrift of our leading trio for the time being.
As we see, some people have decided to save a set of soft tyres for the latter stages of the qualifying session. We've got Joe just coming out now on his preparation lap, just coming through turn 3, as we see here. No, apologies, that would be turn 9 and 10. We've got another yellow flag as people trying to get out of the way, and he starts his push lap now. Now DRS zone down the main straight and through after turn 1 as well, braking at the 50-meter boards and coming through about 4th gear through there, and coming up and through to the very long straights on the circuit and to the highest points, and braking out at the highest points of the circuit right here into turn 3. I'm bringing it up again, another DRS zone. This track is full of them, and riding it through as we see a Aston Martin just behind him. Now coming down through into turn 4s and 5, you've got the very technical S's where you can really get no overtaking done at all, and maybe you can dip a wheel into the gravel just right there at the exit of turn 6. And again, track limits will be crucial round here as you come through, and the Red Bull of Tassan, I think, just getting out of the way of Joe on his push lap, and now coming through and completing his lap, and he gets a 1 minute 4.3. Not too good so far, but obviously that was his first lap out so far. He's going to be cooling down his tyres in the preparation for another run.
Yeah, Joe will be disappointed with that. A little bit off the pace. Only a tenth quicker than RWB in the Mercedes, slotting into P5. 1,000th of a second slower than Jareki. So that shows that when we do have a very short track, the delta between all the drivers does shrink quite dramatically. We saw Matamubi purple in the middle sector there. Will this be the lap that can knock Cameron Sell off provisional pole position? It looked a little bit messy through the final corner, to be honest. We'll see what the Williams does up to the line. He does improve, but it's only second place. Improves by a tenth of a second. Lost time in that final sector. As we saw, the final corner was a little bit messy. Our top 3 covered by 7/100ths of a second. I'm expecting Joe to get in and around that time as well. 7 minutes to go, and it is very close to the top. Dazan on his flying lap has invalidated, so he'll be returning to the pits. Unless he goes for a double push lap, which we saw Cameron Searle do early, but does return to the pits, and that is a set of soft tyres wasted, which is not ideal come race day.
As you see, we've got Matty Moon and Cameron Searle separated by 5/100th of a second. Very small margins across the board, but the gap from P3 to P4 was almost 3/10 of a second. Massive gaps there. Not sure what's going on with that gap. It seems that some of the guys have had quite a bit more preparation than the others. But this circuit has got 3 heavy braking zones and 2 rather light braking zones. So a lot of straights for these guys. So it's very setup dependent, especially through the S's into turns 5, 6, 7, and 8. Where sometimes the car gets a bit unstable and it starts bottoming out as you go down through turn 6. And was that a track tennis there from Ice as well?
It looked very close.
Yeah.
Looked very close, but he hasn't been flagged up for it, so he is going to be able to continue the lap. Currently on a 4.8. We'll be looking to definitely get ahead of Assassin and try and close up to RWB in the first, Mercedes in 6th. Tom Hug also, you would say, out of position down in 9th on a 104.9. Then it is GWS and Alpha, who haven't set a flying lap so far. What is Ice going to do? Looks a little bit unstable at the rear, going through the penultimate corner, and he invalidates on the run up to the final corner. And that is probably the worst place for you to invalidate your lap. First corner and last corner, because you've got so far through the lap, you've just got one corner left to get through, and then you throw it all away at the very last moment. It'll be disappointing for Ice, because as Wilson is off in the gravel on the outside, that's going to wreck another lap. People struggling to get these laps in the crunch time towards the end of this session. Wilson is not going to improve unless his first sector was absolutely rapid, and he almost drops it as he weaves in, I imagine, a little bit of frustration as he returns to the pits very aggressively. You've got to slow down there, buddy. He just manages to keep it out of the wall. 10th place at the moment for Wilson. Will be disappointed with what happened there, but we'll have another go come the end of the qualifying session.
And we've got 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go. We're expecting a rather hectic last couple of minutes to this session, as we now see Ariosaurus coming through into the braking zone of turn 3, as braking about 100 meters into that uphill right-hander. Very tricky corner that, where you got the change of as the camber dips on the inside of the corner. Sometimes it's quite hard to get that inside wall properly rotated through there. Coming through now into turns 4, 5, very nice, and we're through 6, not seeing much. Oh, and that's a wheel into the gravel. As I said, that was commentator's curse right there for you.
Well, it wasn't a great lap going up to that, to be honest. It was a 10th and a half down through the first sector, which is effectively just 2 corners, so not a good start to the lap. And then you said there, running wide into the gravel, dipping a wheel in the gravel, and that is another lap ruined by a mistake in the final sector. Now he's going to be disappointed. Slowest of our times at the moment, as Joe is disconnected. That's not the time you want to be disconnecting, especially with just 3.5 minutes to go. You don't want to be getting ready to go out on track. We've got Dazan, who's out on track and blitzes the fastest lap by nearly a 10th and a half, 103.8. That is now the time to beat. Been flip-flopping a little bit at the top between Dazan, Cameron Searle and Matty Mumu. Joe hasn't been able to get involved with various strategical and now internet errors throughout the first 15 minutes of this session. He's got 2 minutes to get back in and get back out on track. It's going to be tight for Joe, and it could just be a 3-way shootout, depending on how many tyres, how many sets of soft tyres Dayson's got left. Here is Ice coming around the final corner. ERS light flashing at the back, so hasn't got a lot of charge left. Improves by nearly 1/4 of a second up into 7th place. That is probably going to be his final run of this qualifying session, though.
Yeah, the Dayson's going to have almost no battery to try salvage a lap here, as now we see LWB coming through into turn 1, going on for a flying lap, just barely missing the apex into turn 1 there as well. And now with DRS open, flying through that main straight and braking very hard into turn 3. A
little bit of an improvement. He was up by a couple of hundredths, and it is a fairly decent first sector of 16th flat. It's quicker than what Joe managed in his first sector, and he is the driver that RWB will be targeting. The first sector and the final two sectors, so different because you've got those big long straights in the opening sector, and then at the start of the second sector in the run-up to turn 4, and then this middle sector, you've just got to have total commitment through these high-speed corners, chuck the car in and hope it sticks. It can be very easy to lose the back end. Over a quarter of a second found so far. It's purple in the middle sector. This could be challenging the low 1-minute 4s probably for RWB as he negotiates the slow Red Bull on the inside. Coming up to the penultimate corner, a little bit skatey on the outside. He has to be careful of those track limits. Takes the final corner pretty nicely. And what is this going to be for the Mercedes driver? Up to the line. Will it be the 103s? No, it's a 104.1, but jumps up into 4th place ahead of Jaraki. That will probably be it for RWB unless he's got a lot of fuel saved up. He'll have to back off quite a lot to recharge the battery. But that is the gauntlet thrown down from our leading midfield contender at the moment. We'll have to see, with just under 90 seconds to go, if anyone can challenge Dazan at the top and then RWB, who's posted that 104.1 and jumped up into 4th place. Joe still not back in the session, by the way.
Joe being very unfortunate there, just right in the middle of the field, probably going to be not resuming this qualifying session. By the looks of it, nor can you get time out on the track for it. Now we see that Assassin comes through and starts their flying, the final hot lap of the qualifying session.
So a couple of people in the pits. Alpha hasn't gone out, so that must be a double quali ban for the McLaren drivers. Not ideal for the Papaya squadron. We've also got Ice and Joe in the pits. Joe, with that disconnect, will not improve on 6th, and I'd imagine he'll get pushed down a couple of places by the likes of Assassin and potentially Tom Hug as well. GWS hasn't set a time in the second Ferrari. Will be looking to get off the bottom. Joe has rejoined, but it's about a minute too late because he's not going to get that final lap in. We'll see what Assassin can do, though. Should be the first driver over the line to complete our qualifying session. What's the delta in the middle sector? Up by 1.5, although I doubt that it is actually a purple middle sector because he's not improving by enough. We'll see what the Aston Martin does. Up to the final couple of corners, he'll be targeting a top 5 maybe, although half a second is going to have to find a lot of time in this final sector. It's going to be difficult, but we'll see what he does on the run up to the line. Pretty neat and tidy through the final corner as Alpha's retired. That's the end of his session over the line. Assassin, only a 10th improvement, stays in 8th place. I think he'll be bumped down a couple of places come the end of qualifying.
Yeah, we've got Tom Hogg, one of our leading drivers on about the top midfield. Just a bit out of place there, I must admit. He's down in 8th, hopefully coming up for a significant improvement on his lap times.
That's qualifying done. Quali's done. Matimu and Cameron Sell unable to leapfrog Dazen at the top. And it is the Red Bull driver that will take provisional pole unless RWB in the Mercedes comes out of nowhere to steal it. Tom Hug, you were mentioning there, terrible qualifying, down in 9th, 104.9. But it is going to be Dazan on pole position. The top 3 separated by 17 milliseconds. Top 2 separated by 5,000ths of a second. That is what you get at Austria. A very, very tight qualifying session. I think that sets us up very nicely for the sprint and then the main race coming after this. Assassin will cross the line, but it won't be a representative time. And that is your grid. It's Dazan from Matimu and Cameron Searle with 2 of the championship contenders in Joe and Geek out of position with that quali ban and a messy session for Joe with that disconnection.
Some absolutely tiny margins here coming up from this qualifying session. The circuit is known for being right on the knife edge. Up until the last corner, every corner is rather slow. Rather, you have to get right on the pace there. And yeah, it's just some people had it, some people didn't. Tom Hogg looking quite out of place there, and Joe as well. He couldn't really find it in that one push lap that he could manage, and unfortunately he did disconnect as well.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's a great thing. You could have said he should have gone out earlier in the session, used up a load of those soft tyres that he would have saved because he only got 1 lap in. And, you can't predict a disconnect later on. But, yeah, unfortunate, but Joe's obviously got the pace to come back through. And he's not too far behind. He's, I think he was P6 at the end, so didn't actually lose any places on the final runs. Geek has got a lot of work to do with that quali ban coming back from 14th. It can also can always be a little bit tricky and a little bit treacherous trying to get back through the pack at Austria with the nature of the track. I hope we aren't going to be seeing some audacious moves into turn 1 because I will be questioning the racing IQ of people that try and send it up the inside of turn 1 when you have a long straight and then a hairpin about, what's that going to be, 200 meters in front. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. We have been informed, though, we have got rain for the sprint race. Exciting.
It's going to be rather interesting. Everyone going to be out there on medium or wet tyres, and turn 1 is going to be an absolute bloodbath, I'm going to predict. A lot of lap 1 excursions going into turn 1 and 3. As always with sim racing, and especially F123, the wet tyres aren't always up to scratch with how people would like them to perform. And we will see people bashing wheels, breaking front wings. A lot of people running into the pit straight away for a change of front wings. So hopefully it will dry up, but nothing's ever guaranteed.
I'm going to call it now. Someone, I don't know who you are, but it's going to happen to you. Is going to get caught out by that sausage curb on the outside of turn 1. It is treacherous. You're going to get absolutely totally hawked on the exit if you go too wide. And I think someone's going to get squeezed out onto that curb and either drop it or smash their floor to pieces, which is not going to be a good start to the sprint race.
Especially on the exit of turn 3 as well. You've also got a massive one there. And some people are going to be forced wide and onto that, going 2 wheels right over that, and probably straddling that sausage curb, because with these cars and the ground effect cars, sometimes you do get the occasional grounding out onto the sausage curb.
5 red lights, though, ahead of our drivers in the rain for the Austrian Grand Prix sprint. We are underway. Good start for our leading two, as look at the Ferrari swapping places on the left-hand side of the screen as they battle into turn 1. It is going to be Dazan who keeps his lead. The Ferrari's very ambitious into turn 1. We've got a McLaren going wide, as does the Mercedes of, I believe that was Tom Hug, but it is still our top 3 in the same formation as they were on the grid, with RWB in 4th ahead of Joe, who's made up a place on Jackie. 3 wide behind going into turn 3. The Ferrari manages to hold on, but goes a little bit deep. They're skating off the track at turn 3, struggling to negotiate the corner, and that's going to be 1 and 2 and maybe 3 places lost for Wilson, dropping down into 12th place. Matty Moomy's got his teammate behind him now. He's managed to get past RWB into turn 3, but that is an exciting start as people swap places in the midfield. Geek, though, hasn't managed to make up the places that he would have liked as he gets past Wilson, who has been ice skating for the first half of this lap up into 12th place. More contact between RWB and Ice, and Jackie trying to get involved as well. Is that a double overtake up the inside into what will be turn 6 and into turn 7? I believe it is. Jackie moves up into 5th place. Good stuff from the Alfa Romeo, but it's Dazan who keeps his lead. And further back, Wilson has dropped to last place after that ice skating start from Arias in the pits for the AlphaTauri team. That is going to be a front wing change and the suboptimal start to the Grand Prix for the AlphaTauri driver. Dazen now in front has got half a second over Cameron Searle. The gap's pretty equidistant going back to Joe in 4th, and then it's Jaraki who's struggling to keep up. Ice in 6th, head of RWB, who's dropped down from 4th on the grid. Poor start for the Mercedes driver. Assassin and Tom Hug very close as they come up towards turn 3. We can see Jaraki here struggling to keep up. Tomo's got a 10-second penalty for exceeding track limits. That looks extremely harsh. And we've got a car off in the back. Is that Tom Hug? Yes, it is. He must have completely missed his braking zone into turn 3 because he's gone face first into the barrier. And that is a front wing gone. And that is sprint pretty much over for the Mercedes driver. It was a difficult qualifying session for Tom Hug off the back of that podium that he got last week in Miami. He's down in 13th, and we do have a safety car for that instance. Slightly surprising because the debris was way off the circuit. Brings Aria back into it, though, who is going to catch the back of the pack, and it also gives Tom Hug another lifeline after that blunder going into turn 3. He must have been so late on the brakes that he flew into the corner and cut the corner on the inside to pick up the 10-second penalty. Crazy stuff from the Mercedes, and this not been a good start for the Silver Arrows, with RWB dropping back those 3 places from 4th on the grid as well. There is still Dazan leading from Cameron Searle and the 2 Williams. Joe's done what he needed to do on the opening couple of laps, getting up into 4th place. And it is Jaraki in 5th, as we've got a Ferrari in as well. This is going to be Wilson into the pits. I wonder if he picked up some damage in that kerfuffle that went on with Tom Hug into turn 3. And yeah, if we can get some reports on what happened to Tom Hug there, that would be ideal. We can get some live interaction going, get some live updates back to the comms box, the virtual comm box, of course. But yeah, Mercedes and Ferrari get to work on those cars in the pits. The 2 McLarens up places after not making the gains on the opening lap, but managing to pick up places thanks to other people's mistakes. Geek up into 10th will be looking to try and get up towards 5th place will be his target, because he wants to be up with his championship rivals, but realistically it might be a little bit difficult with no DRS for him.
Tom Hug getting very unfortunate though. Great start off the line and just dropping back there with a broken nose. And the safety car now coming through, and people are just trying to catch up to the safety car. Obviously, with how this game works, it will not restart until everyone is grouped up together. So yeah, a very unfortunate incident coming up there with some big winners there actually from the start of the race, with Cameron Searle leaping Matty Mumu off the line.
Yes.
They're going into second, and the RWB, the two Mercedes drivers, having absolutely horrible first lap there, and yeah.
Well, I think
Joe as
Matthew
well.
actually, Matthew got a decent initial launch, but then it must have been on the run up to turn 3, which people are finding very difficult. Everybody's into the pits though, or Joe and Jackie are into the pits at least. I wonder what they are going to be for. Will it be soft tyres? Will it be wet tyres? Is the rain starting to come down even stronger as Wilson picks up a corner cutting penalty under safety car? That is a little bit embarrassing, it has to be said. That's going to add 3 seconds to his overall race time. We'll see what tyres Joe and Jackie come out on. They are dry tyres. This is a bold call. Stay tuned, folks, because we're going to see some potential fireworks once the safety car comes back in, because it is still very much raining, but Jackie and Joe have rolled the dice and put on the soft tyres.
That is a very bold move indeed, with still on the camera quite a bit of rain coming down onto the racetrack, but possibly they could try catch them out at the end of the safety car, and as it looks like it might be ending at the end of this lap. But very interesting call there made from the two drivers there, who are both in earshot of the championship. Obviously, Jareki being a little bit further back from everybody else at 388 points in P6.
This is not good for them, by the way. Are in this lap. This is not good. This is quite the Hail Mary shot, and the track you can see is clearly not wet, clearly not dry enough, as Joe, going through the puddles, almost drops it on the exit of turn 4 and then up into turn 5. This could, I think this is far too early for the soft tyres. They needed the safety car to stay out for another 3 laps maybe, but it hasn't. I think Jareki and Joe are going to be struggling to keep it out of the barriers on the restart.
They'll be hoping and praying that something happens up in front where they can make a move, or somebody goes off track or something. And maybe even another safety car
goes
gets
Cameron
called out.
Searle.
Is he going to take the gamble as well? That's
the worst timing. What are you doing, Cameron? You've come in as the safety cars come in. You might as well have just stuck to the strategy and stayed out on the intermediates. It means that Dazan leads Matty Moo once again. Ice is up 4 places from the start into third, ahead of RWB and Assassin. The two McLarens up into 7th and 8th. All the Christmases have come at once if you're driving an orange car, and Geek could be shaping up for a move to get past GWS to take 6th place now. That'll be 8 places gained in the first sort of lap and a half of racing that we've actually had. Gets very close between the McLaren and the Ferrari, an age-old rivalry, and Geeks actually had a terrible exit out of turn 3 and is under pressure from his teammate coming up into turn 4. But it is still Dazan leading from Matty Mumu, who we're going to track the progress of the dry tyre runners, but Joe has not had a good restart. He's dropped 3 seconds to the back of the pack. Jareki is coping much better on the soft tyres. It could be a case of traction control versus no traction control. I'm not sure what assist they're running, but if you are running no traction control in this, I think you are absolutely crazy to be on the soft tyres, because there is going to be no grip. And this is the sprint race. This isn't the time to roll the dice and take a risk, because this is going to decide your grid spot as Geek finally gets past GWS in an untraditional overtaking place on the track up into 6th place. I think that might have been a track limits extension for GWS. Tom Hugs into the pits as well, so they are clearly deciding that the soft tyres are going to be needed come the end of this race, but some people have gone way too early, and I think it could cost them.
Tassan just setting the fastest lap there, as we now see that Joe cannot improve on that time. It still seems like the intermediate tyre is still a lot faster than the stick soft tyre. Very bold moves coming out from everyone here. Tom Hug also going onto the soft tyre. We will see quite some interesting racing happening from the back of the pack there as they try to claw their way up as the sprint race dries up. Maybe the front runners will be keeping themselves on the intermediate tyres throughout the duration of the sprint race, not trying to risk a pit stop from the and dropping all the way down to the middle or back of the pack.
I think the safe strategy here is probably to stay out, because you can look at the helping hand they're getting from Wilson, who's dropped 7 seconds to Aria on this restart. Jaraki's caught up behind, as is Joe, and Cameron Selb will be in a matter of laps. This is a very brave move up the inside of the penultimate corner from Alpha. Backs out of it. GWS manages to hold it around the outside. Couple more cars into the pits. RWB and Assassin into the box. Geek up into 4th ahead of this pair battling over what is now 5th and 6th. Half the guys in the field have gone for the soft compound tyres, half of them sticking it out on the inters. We'll have to wait and see if that is the correct decision. Top 6 all on the intermediates, everybody else behind on the soft tyres as Aria into the pits as well for a set of dry tyres. Wilson is the lead driver, but he's 11 seconds behind, and that gap's only going to get bigger as Jaraki and Joe struggle to make their way through.
An absolutely massive gap from the rest of the field here. On our side, anyway, it might be different for the drivers that are feeling that maybe that the intermediate tyres are overheating just a little bit. But right now, if I was running up top, I would not be thinking about those stick tyres right now. But that said, if you are running papaya liveries at the moment, you would be very fortunate, very lucky indeed, running up in 4th and 6th, starting from a horrible qualifying. Obviously for Geek and Alpha in the McLarens.
Well, the gap's stabilised now. It's hovering around 11.5 seconds. You can see here we're on board with Jaraki, who's tucked up underneath the rear wing of the Ferrari. I think the Alfa Romeo will be getting past the Ferrari very shortly. GWS is in, as is Alpha, as is Ice. The top 3 are going to stick it out. The DRS is enabled, which tells you the dry tyres are now probably going to be quicker. But have they left themselves with too much to do? Thanks to Wilson blocking the pack effectively. He's bottled up everybody else behind. Here comes Jaraki into turn 1. That is a crucial overtake for the Alfa Romeo driver if he's going to challenge the leaders at this pace. He's only got 5 laps to try and get back towards Geek, and then Matamu and Dazan, who I don't think will be coming into the pits at this stage. Wilson gets back past, though. That's not good. The gap's now 14 seconds as the Ferrari goes a little bit deep, and I think the staying out on the inters is probably the strategy that's going to work, because they're not making the time on the top 3.
Hopefully once they come through, and as we see now, Jaraki trying to make a bold move through Wilson as he just gets a little bit squirrely getting into turn 6 there.
Big slide from Ice coming out of turn 4 as well. That's going to open Joe up for a potential attack on the Red Bull. Dazan and Matimu are in the pits, so they've decided that it is time for the soft tyres. They're going to be behind Jaraki at this stage. I think it might have been worth staying out. I wonder what Geek's going to do. Geek is going to, as ever with Geek, he's going to roll the dice and stay out till the very end. He stayed out on the hard tyres on the safety car restart last week. Didn't work out for him. He's got about 15 seconds, I think, in hand over Jaraki, who is going to be the lead soft tyre runner. No, Dazan and Matamu, as Cameron Sell sets the fastest lap, are going to be in front. So 11 seconds is the gap that Geek's got to try and maintain in the last 4 laps. This is going to be critical as we see more battling going on. Wilson struggling to hold on to places as the DRS gets enabled and people get that helping hand to try and get past the Ferrari, who's struggling to hold on at the moment. Joe sends it up the inside. That's a cheeky little manoeuvre if he can get it done, but I think he's going to have to sit behind until this next DRS straight. You can see they're side by side coming out of the corner. Ice is on the charge now, was 3rd before he came into the pits, drops down Jaraki into 5th place. Joe gets past Wilson around the outside, does he? Wilson's going to hold it up the inside. There's contact on the exit. Both drivers lucky that they didn't get pitched into the gravel trap on the left-hand side, with Joe up into 6th place trying to recover from his poor qualifying. Gets back up to where he started after that very early call. All the soft tyres, and Wilson's just tumbling through the order now. RWB is through. I think Cameron Sell's going to be next on the list to get past the struggling Ferrari, and the ailing Scarlet car, I think, is going to struggle to keep inside the top 10. The gap is coming down very quickly out in front. Geek's now only got 8.5 seconds in hand with 3 laps to go. The podium places are going to be a real challenge because Dazan and Matimu catching them very quickly, but they're going to be battling each other very shortly, and they're probably going to hold each other up in the process. The soft tyre runnings here are going a lot quicker than Geek here, as we see that Matimu makes a move onto Dazan through the DRS and braking zone into turn 3. Very clean move there, as we've seen from not many drivers this race so far. Very interesting moves from Joe though, trying to go around the outside into turn 4, as we now see that Cameron Sell just trying to get past Wilson, as well as Wilson is just falling down the order on those soft tyres, probably just a little bit too old and overheating for his liking, and now right down, going from 4th down to 9th. Very unfortunate there for Wilson. The track has dried very quickly. I think Geek's going to be under pressure in just a matter of corners now. The gap's under 5 seconds. These guys are towing each other along. Matimu and Dazan are pulling everybody else behind towards the McLaren. We've got 2 laps to go. You can see the McLaren in the distance. Matimu and Dazan are going to be on the back of the Papaya car in a matter of corners. And Geek's going to have to fight for his life to try and protect as many places as possible. He's going to be getting flashbacks to the previous race where he plummeted through the field. Dazan and Matimu have still got a sprint win to contest as they come up on the run to turn 3. Dazan's going to make a move up the inside. Is he going to take this second place on the road back from Matimu? Williams is going to try and hang it around the outside. Really good racing from these two. Good respectful racing as well. They're side by side going down the second straight up towards turns 4 and 5. It is Dazan who cuts in front of the Williams to take second place back. And he's going to be first to attack the A-Link McLaren in front. 2.5 seconds the gap. And then a further 2.5 seconds between Matimu and Ice. If Geek can try and get maybe a top 5 out of this, that would be an exceptional effort from him with this alternate strategy. But you can see he's already been caught. He's really struggling. The tyres are going to be absolutely melting as he goes through this fast section of the track. Cameron Searle trying to recover as well after he timed his switch to soft tyres terribly, it has to be said. But Geek's already been caught by these two. The win and second place can be gone. Look how slow he is coming out of the final corner as Dazan and Matimu pull out to take those first and second places starting the final lap of the sprint. Where is Geek going to end up? We'll have to wait and see come the end of this final lap.
Geek is going to be plummeting down the order as he did last week. He does not want to be in those intermediate tyres right now, but has made the call too late and has decided to stay out on the intermediates as Ice is now just looking at the inside.
Whoa,
He's now got 3 wide into turn 3.
This can't end well, surely. Surely it can't end well. Cameron Searle gets squeezed out onto the sausage curd. RWB in the Mercedes is the big winner there up into 5th. Dazan and Matimu swap places out in front though. Look at this battling into turns 4 and 5. There's contact on the exit. Matimu gets a little bit squirrely, but the Red Bull manages to hold on to the lead. And I think he's going to take our sprint race victory. Ice gets past Geek, RWB, Joe and Cameron Searle with Jaraki on the back of them as well. I'm going to be next in line to get past the McLaren who's really struggling, but it's going to be Dazan who takes the sprint race win. I want to jump back to Geek though because he's got 4 cars queued up behind him. It feels a little bit like Sergio Perez when he lost his front wing in the 2020 race. RWB is going to go up the inside into the penultimate corner to take 4th. Is Geek, who was really slow out of the final corner last lap, going to hold on. Dazan with the victory over Matimu. Ice is going to take a brilliant 3rd place in this race. How many places can Geek hold on to? He loses out to Joe, but he's going to come home a very commendable 6th place. Does very well considering he started last. Held on to as many places as possible. Joe just getting in front at the death there to finish in 5th. Cameron Searle will be very disappointed with that sprint race and will come home in 7th ahead of Jaraki. Assassin and Alpha rounding out the top 10. Exciting stuff with changeable conditions.
With Geek starting all the way down at the bottom of the field and bringing himself back up to 5th, that's a very commendable effort, seeing as he did not at all make the switch onto the soft tyres. But I've got a feeling, I must admit, Joe went onto the soft tyres a bit too early, and I feel like he could have, if he hung out for a couple more laps, then he could have made some moves quite later on into the race instead of holding back while the track was still drying up and the conditions are still changing with the tyres still being very cold.
Yeah, critical decisions costing people as the rain eased up throughout the sprint race. But we've had qualifying, we've had the sprint. We're going to get ready for the race in just a moment. But in the little interlude we've got, I struggled to find the correct word there. We are going to show you what Special Effect do to help the gaming community.
Nobody likes being left out. That's why Special Effect are helping people with physical disabilities to play video games. But this isn't just about having fun. The gaming setups we create are personalised, so people can play to the very best of their abilities. And that opens the door to inclusion and independence, confidence and creativity. Help us level the playing field and create more magical gaming moments. Because it's everyone's turn to play.
A fantastic cause, I'm sure you can agree, and here at the BUSR we're very proud to support Special Effect. Moving back to the race, though, the sprint was full of action with the changeable conditions, and I'm expecting we'll see something very similar.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting race. I've got a feeling it's probably going to be a bone dry race and in the sun as well. So a lot of tire deg and a lot of interesting strategy calls. As you said earlier, the one and the two stop delta is going to be very marginal, and we're going to see a lot of people trying out the one stop and the two stop in this race. Maybe we could see that some people maybe trying to run on the softs and make some late moves or some early moves through the stages of the race.
I think strategy is going to be key, whether people start on the mediums or the hards, which is what I expect we'll see the majority of people go for, although they will have a few sets of soft tyres left, the likes of Joe, who didn't use all of them in qualifying, so we'll see if anyone does decide to do something different. We've got people relatively in the right place. The top two are, as you probably expect, and then we've got our three other championship contenders in 5th, 6th and 7th, so they'll have to A, avoid each other, and then B, avoid the slightly slower cars in front of them to try and get back towards the podium places. I still think we're going to have a big fight for the win between more than just two cars. We get ready to go once again. You can see the medium tyres on the Red Bull out in front, 5 red lights ahead of our drivers, and the clutches are dropped and we're away for the Austrian Grand Prix. Better start for Matti Moon, I think, but he's going to slot in behind Days and into turn 1. 3 wide behind us, the two Ferraris get brilliant starts on the outside. Is there going to be contact between them? No, one of them goes flying off the road. The other, I think that's GWS, gets past Wilson, but it is Dazan who still leaves Matti Moon with the two McLarens trying to get a move on further back as Geek losing a place to Jarek, I think it was, going down into turn 3. Yes, the Alfa Romeo commits on the inside, a little bit too late on the brakes though, hits the side of the Williams of Joe, and everyone's getting caught up behind the two Ferraris, getting caught up in an instant with the Aston Martin. Crazy stuff. People struggling to negotiate turn 3 once again, like we saw in the sprint. We've got 6 cars separated by about half a second going down into turn 4. The two Ferraris lead. The Alfa Tauri is very late on the brakes and goes into the side of the Aston Martin, but they keep it clean enough. No damage caused from that. And it's still Dazan leading Matamumu, Ice, RWB Joe and Geek are top 6, staying in the same order, I believe.
Yeah, the Ferrari is getting very scrappy there into turns 1 and 3, sandwiching first Cameron Soul and then Assassin, as Assassin drops right down to the back of the pack there. Very unfortunate from there. As you saw, there was a flash of possible strategies. As this is now we've got the one stop prevailing through the race, with some people, most people starting out on the mediums, it looks like, and coming through this race, maybe going from mediums to hards. However, we do have Ice, Wilson and GWS starting on the soft tyres. Maybe they're trying to make a couple of moves early on into this race. It looks like it's worked out very well for Wilson, indeed, going up into 7th place now, as now we see Matimumu and Dasan battling each other for P1, coming through now into turn 6.
Got to be careful of Ices on the soft compound tyres, chomping at the bit behind them to try and make the most of the tyre delta he got. We saw Assassin in the Aston Martin in the pit, so must have picked up damage from the contact between the Ferraris on the opening lap. RWB holding on into 4th, nice as well. And then you got Geek, who got past Joe on the start of the 2nd lap. Cameron Searles lost places down in 9th place on the hard compound tyres. Wilson, who was playing a little bit of bumper cars with people, bumping and grinding with people on the opening lap, up into 7th place, but he's got a 3-second penalty. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of those over the next 33 laps. Geek with the fastest lap of the race as he looks to close the gap that had formed between himself and RWB. Out in front, Dazan and Matamumu separated by just under 0.4 of a second, and with the DRS enabled, I think we could be seeing a swap for the lead and potentially the places behind, because RWB looking very racy behind Ice going up into turn 3 and actually had a little look around the outside. Will Matamumu use the DRS and the slipstream to his advantage to fly past the Red Bull? He tried it on the previous lap. This time I think it's going to be a little bit easier for the Williams driver, and Matamumu is up into the lead of this race. Further back, the other Red Bull under pressure as well, as RWB trying to get 3rd place, from Ice. The soft tyres clearly not as quick as we first thought. As is he going to have a look up the inside into turn 6? No, it's Matamumu from the two Red Bulls, RWB, and then Geek coming onto the back of this queue as well. 3 laps down, 3 laps of good racing action so far, bodes well.
RWB getting very racy there, as now he just gets past Ice. It looks like he just barely. Now we have a Ferrari stop there of GWS into the gravel trap there. Looks like he just probably dipped a wheel out and spun it a little bit there, but now he's gotten going, and and now he comes through into the turn as he completes his final lap.
I hate to do it, but is the classic spinala has struck again. You love to see it. The Ferrari facing the wrong way. Dazan and Matimu very close out in front once again, under 2/10 going into turn 3 as Cameron Searle sends it up the inside of Jaraki. That's an overtake he needed to get done as quickly as possible in the AlphaTauri up into 8th place, but Jaraki's going to have a second go at trying to get that place back down into turn 5, but I think he's a little bit too far back. Lee changes hands once again. RWB's got past the other Red Bull out in front. Dazan moves back up into the lead of the race as Matti Mumu. Is he going to try and move down into turn 6 to get that place back? No. Sits behind the Red Bull and they swap places for the second time in as many laps. Dazan takes the lead back from Matti Mumu. Now RWB ahead of Ice, and then Geek, Joe, Wilson, Cameron Searle. They're all in this big train. Everyone is fairly equidistant and in DRS range of each other. You can see on the mini map, everyone close together up until you reach Tom Hug in 11th place, who's lost 3.5 seconds.
You're going to see this a lot with people just leading a DRS train here. As Dazan just is going to be there under pressure from everyone with DRS as well, as he's being jostled with by Matamu and RWB just looking around the inside as well. And now we see a Wilson as well, just trundling his way through the longest straight on this track.
Oh, sending out the inside is Geek into turn 3. He had a really late look up the inside of Ice. That's going to compromise his exit and open him up to attack from the second Williams of Joe behind. Can Joe use the DRS and the slipstream to his advantage? He moves to the right-hand side. He's going to commit down the inside of the McLaren. Williams versus McLaren into turn 5. They get very close on the outside, but I think Geek's going to hold on to that position and keep 5th place. He made a little mistake into the hairpin, but manages to rectify and hold on to the position. Net zero gain / loss out in front. Dazan still under 0.3 of a second ahead of Matti Mumu. This big DRS train, it's going to take someone to make a catastrophic mistake to break this DRS train. Will it be Ice that does it on the soft tyres that are going to wear fairly quickly? Geek is looking very racy behind. Cuts the corner a little bit maybe on the inside there, the final corner, but he's going to use the DRS to his advantage and get up into 4th place. And considering he started the sprint last, he's made up 10 places over the course of the sprint and the first 6 laps here. Out in front, Matti Mumu putting pressure on Dazan once again. I think they're going to swap places as Ice pulls out to the left-hand side to try and get this place back from the McLaren of Geek up into turn 3. Constant battling, people seemingly unable to complete the move and hold on to that position once they've got past the first time. The chasing car able to overtake them. GWS, the 2 Ferraris, struggling to keep it within the track limits. The lead changes hands once again. Geek trying to go around the outside to get 4th place back, but no, has to sit behind for now.
Lots of action through through this race with everyone being so close and bunched up as well, as now we see that RWB just looking around the inside of the sun there, just maybe thinking about a move later into turn 10 and possibly turn 1 and 3.
Geek going for it once again up the inside of Ice into the penultimate corner. It's not a traditional overtaking zone in the Red Bulls, actually into the pit, so that's a very early stop for Ice. I wonder if he picked up some damage or if he's just had enough of those red striped soft compound tyres. But here's the first to blink out of our leaders, pitting on lap 7 for a set of medium tyres, so he must be on the 2-stop strategy. He's got a penalty as well, has he? Or oh no, there's a big lag spike, because he actually jumps halfway down the pit lane. So thank you very much for that, EA service. He's going to come out in 12th place with GWS in the Ferrari, who has also come in for a stop. Joe, who was behind Geek, is now under pressure from Cameron Searle. Championship contenders getting oh so close down the straight, coming up towards turn 5. I think it was the AlphaTauri just a little bit too aggressive as Joe cut across him. Are they going to make contact again into turns 4 and 5? No. The AlphaTauri of Cameron Searle sits behind Joe, holding on to 5th place. I wonder how they got so close together. We've got our 5 championship contenders filling the top 6, with RWB showing really good pace in that Mercedes, sat in between them.
Yeah, the last thing you want going into the penultimate round of the championship is to be crashing out against your rival, especially when you've already had a DNF and your drop round is already being accounted for. And now Cameron Searle just having a very nice look, possibly thinking about an opportunity into turn 1. Just going to wait it out now. Maybe just not even using his battery. He's probably has quite a high charge percentage in that reserve. Now maybe thinking about a move into turn 3, as I just stutter a little bit there for a possible move between the two championship contenders there.
Big fishtail on the exit of turn 3, though. That's going to cost Cameron Sell going down the straight. It means he won't get a run at Joe, who has almost dropped out of DRS range of our top 4. So it's Joe that's struggling for pace. He might end up being the cork in the bottle. We've our 10-car train at one point has been relegated to just 6 cars, and if Joe's struggling for pace, it's going to be 5 cars in a matter of laps. Matamu is still with the lead over Dazan, RWB and Geek, all equidistant. You can see the gaps almost identical, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, ever increasing by a tenth as we go through them. And then Joe is 9 tenths back, struggling to hold on. Cameron Searle will be desperate to get past to make sure they don't get detached from this leading group. You see the ARS light flashing there. I'm not sure what car it was. Might be Joe. Yes, it is Joe. He's used all of his battery. He is going to be extremely vulnerable down the straight into turn 3. And I think Cameron Searle, with no DRS for the Williams driver as well, is going to make this look very, very easy. Light work for Cameron Searle up into 5th place. Joe is back down into 6th. And I wonder if he's going to struggle to keep up with the cars in front. Gets very close as he looks for a potential switchback on the exit. Will he try and get this place back with the second helping of DRS? He's a little bit too far back, though, I think, to make a move into turn 4. Cameron Searle will consolidate 5th place. Further forward, RWV very close to the back of Dazen, meanwhile.
Things with this track as well is that because you have the DRS is so prevalent, once you've broken out of DRS range, it's very hard to get back in unless you bring something out. And as now we see that Ariosaurus gets very squirrely there against the likes of Tom Hug, just keeping it beautifully through the turn, through the outside of turn 4, and now coming through, and maybe losing that place out, but it looks like he will be clear of that, and now on the hunt for Alpha, but 7 seconds back does not look very likely currently. But yeah, with how this track lends itself, once you're out that DRS range, there's almost no chance of you getting back in it, because the leads are just going to be flying off in front as they keep slingshotting each other back and forth. As now we see with Matamu and Desand have been switching places, but it looks like now it's just settled down quite a bit now. And as I say that,
but the lead changes hands once again. It's been a few laps since we saw the last change of lead, but Matamu does relinquish it to the Red Bull and Dazan up into the lead of the race. RWB had a really bad run through turn 3, and Geek was fancying his chances on the exit of trying to get that 3rd place and get up onto the podium. But he's got a very fast-looking AlphaTauri now stuck right in his wing mirrors, and he's got to be careful that Cameron Searle, one of his championship rivals, doesn't go for an audacious lunge to try and get 4th place. Behind them, Joe managing to keep up. Look how close they get through the penultimate corner. If you get it slightly wrong, you're going to be either punting somebody else into a barrier, or you're going to be ending up in the barrier as well. We've got the top 6 separated by, that's probably 3 seconds, if that, going into turn 1. This is quite the DRS train as Geeks lost it on the exit of turn 1. Geeks off into the grass on the outside, and that is going to be a real race through, and he drops out of this train. He's going to lose the DRS as well, and his teammate is going to be closing up. But that's what we were saying. Tiniest of mistakes, and you lose a whole host of time and positions. Geek drops from 4th down to 6th. Could have been a lot worse. Lucky that he didn't clout the barrier on the inside there in the grass, doing a little bit of Valtteri Bottas lawn mowing, and he'll be looking to try and catch up to the back of this pack. It's hurt Joe as well, who got caught out by the McLaren spinning off on the inside. Cameron Searle is now going to be attacking RWB, and it's almost all fallen into place for the AlphaTauri driver.
Yeah, it looks like Cameron Searle's had a very fortunate run there, starting all the way back from P11 at the start of this race, and then moving his way up to P4. But very unfortunate there from Geek, as he just drops the wheel into the grass and spins it out, and losing sight of the DRS train as well. As possibly maybe you can get Alpha to give him a bit of a hand with the DRS and just move him a bit forwards, and maybe contest Joe for P5 and the standings.
He's actually almost caught back up to the back of the pack. Only 1.1 seconds. Cameron Searle is almost pushing RWB round turn 1. We're going to have a change of lead once again. RWB is going to try and get involved. We're almost 4 wide going up the straight into turn 3. Cameron Searle up the inside of the Mercedes. Hard tyres versus medium tyres. Was that a spot of rain I saw maybe? That could throw the cat amongst the pigeons. Matamu takes the lead back from Dazen going down the straight into turn 4 and 5. Cameron Searle wasn't able to use the overspeed he had to get past the Mercedes of RWB. It is now the lead is Matamu once again for Williams. Dazan on to second place as Cameron Searle made a very aggressive aggressive dart to the inside to try and feint up the inside of RWB. The Mercedes was wise to it, holds on to third place. Then it is Joe and Geek trying to get back in the DRS range. He's going to be burning a lot of battery to catch them back up. And if they continue to battle this hard, he's going to get back in that DRS range very shortly.
Some very excellent racing from these guys, keeping it rather relatively clean for how Austria can be with these massive runoffs and gravel at every corner that you can think of. As Ice is just looking around Tom, thinking maybe I can make a move through here, as Tom is out of DRS and 10 seconds behind Alpha, with now 2 drivers within DRS range, as they just barely make contact there. And now Ice just making a very, very easy DRS pass. Oh, maybe not, as now we see that as Cameron is Ari trying to make a move, almost making contact there with Tom, and now Ice gets past with DRS.
Out in front. Out in front, Dazan has got the lead back from Matamu, so they swap places. Matamu was actually under pressure from RWB as the Mercedes is now all over the place going through turns 7 and 8. Is that going to open Cameron Searle up to a potential attack into the penultimate corner? It will be ambitious, and it would have been a little bit stupid into the pits because Matamu, he's had enough of his tyres. The medium tyres, I said earlier, felt absolutely terrible once you got to lap 10. He obviously doesn't fancy them. Is it going to be a 2-stopper? This is where we see what strategy people are on. Geek has dropped a little bit more time. I think he's nearly 2 seconds. Yes, he is. Off the back of that group. What tyres does the Williams team put on Matamu's car? It's a set of hard tyres as Geek picks up a penalty. That's not going to be good for him. Matamu, you think, is going to be going to the end here, and he's gone for a big undercut, but he's going to come out in a bit of traffic, I think.
Those hard tyres going on for about 22 laps is going to be very difficult for Matamu to keep into a good operating window for the rest of this race, as now he just slots right behind Aria. Sadly enough, without DRS, because obviously the detection. And now Aria goes for a very late lunges. Now Matamu gets very close, and two cars into one as it goes, and he is through very nicely indeed against Aria and Tom Hug. And it looks like he's going to clear it very quickly indeed.
Huge slice of luck there for Matamu. He came out in the worst possible position behind 2 cars that had been fighting extremely hard over the past 10 laps or so. But they fought so hard that they pushed each other off the road, and Matamu didn't even need an invitation. He sent it up the inside and got through those 2 cars. Now he sets off after Ice, who has also already been in the pits. He started on the soft tyres, of course. The second Red Bull has got a massive undercut. Will take the provisional lead of this race as Aria picks up a 3-second penalty. Matamu, though, is going to be on the charge. He's got a relatively good amount of clean air. Ice isn't exactly going to be slow in front of him on the medium compound tyres, so this could be good for Matamu. He's managed to negotiate the 2 cars that could have wrecked his race. He's now going to be setting about putting in the qualifying laps to get that undercut working, as RWB has taken the lead of the Grand Prix. So a new race leader, but is Dazan going to have something to say about it? Ice has left the session. That's not good for Matamu. Dazan gets the place back on the exit going through turn 5, and a glimmer of hope for the Silver Arrows as RWB led the race for approximately 3 seconds there. Cameron Searle there sat just behind, and Joe struggling to keep up at this stage, and Geeks lost 2.5 seconds.
Top 3 just about almost broken away from Joe there and almost out of DRS range. Maybe he can think about preserving those tyres and maybe preserving P4 in this race, as it looks like he might not have enough pace to get him through to the end of the race. Or just maybe those medium tyres on every single one of those cars looks to be almost finished at this point now. As you said, it looks like 10 laps is enough for the medium tyres to go on before they start disintegrating.
Cameron Searle up the inside of RWB. It looked a little bit messy. Was there contact at the apex of turn 3? We weren't quite able to see it on the exit. RWB manages to hold on to second place. Cameron Searle's going to use the slipstream down into turn 4. Which way is he going to go? Goes to the outside. RWB defensive. Can the Mercedes hold on to second place? This time last lap he was taking the lead of the race, albeit very briefly. Cameron Searle, former championship leader, is now up into second place. That is brilliant stuff from the AlphaTauri driver. Takes second place away from RWB, who I think is starting to struggle a little bit with his tyres. Cameron Searle setting himself up very nicely. We saw Ice disconnecting earlier. That's Matimumu's his toe buddy gone, and he's got to do all of the work himself without the use of the Red Bull that's on the faster medium tyres at this stage. Hard tyres for Matimumu. He's 6.5 seconds behind Alpha, and then 4.5 seconds the gap up towards Geek. Setting purple sectors at the moment, so the pace is obviously there. I think he is going to be in the lead of the race by the time everyone else comes back in for their first stops, but he is going to have that tyre offset, so bear that in mind come the end of the Grand Prix.
We could see some of the front runners also going on to a two-stop as well. As it said that possibly the two-stopper might be able to make itself rather prevalent in this race. But that said, Matimumu doing very well to keep those tyres alive right now.
Contact.
Closing up.
Contact between Cameron Searle and Dazan as they go through turn 4. That looked a little bit messy. Cameron Searle looking very racy in this race as he takes the lead of the Grand Prix for the first time. The AlphaTauri driver up the inside into turn 6 and takes the lead. I think these medium tyres are absolutely shot. You can see RWB struggling to keep up in the background. Joe all over the back of him as we go through the middle sector and up towards the final couple of corners. Cameron Searle leads for the first time. I think Dazen and RWB are going to be in the pits any time now for a brand new set of tyres, are they? No, they stay out. Interesting stuff. They're obviously both struggling as it's actually Geek that's into the pits. He's on the hard tyres though, so had enough of those. That'll be mediums to the end, I can only imagine. So yeah, Geek, we'll see where he feeds out once he makes this pit stop. But that's slightly earlier than we were imagining. He's obviously going for an undercut to try and get himself back in this race.
Geek going for a very interesting strategy indeed with those hard tyres. As now we see that Cameron Searle just leads for. Takes P1 from the sun to through the exit of turn 3, and now just Titan there sitting there like a duck as RWB goes around the inside of turn 4 and just about holds on to P2 from the sun as they now battle through into turn 6.
The battle of the drivers with the dead tyres. Battle of the drivers with the dead tyres.
He's just got to back out at this point. Now, there's no way that you can go two abreast through some of these corners, and now as he just backs out and slots right back into place. But Joe catching up very well, just saying thank you very much there. Now we see that Geek going around the outside of Wilson into turn 4 and picking up that place beautifully. Did I see a bit of spray there for maybe a bit of rain? No, it doesn't look like it, but now ice and rejoined, but it's dropped all the way back down to 12.
Race leaders in. Cameron Searle was the provisional race leader. He got that back. He is into the pits for the medium compounder tyres. Dazen and RWB going very long on those mediums. You can see they're struggling for pace. Matimumu's already gone through. Where is Cameron Searle going to be in comparison to Geek? There's actually a decent gap between the AlphaTauri and the McLaren. He goes very close to the wall on the exit of the pit lane. Make sure you don't damage your front wing there, fella. I think he's managed to negotiate it just about. That was a little bit of a brown pants moment for the AlphaTauri. Round the outside goes Dazan, trying to get the lead back from RWB as they duel down into turns 4 and 5. The Red Bull holds on ahead of Mercedes. Surely these guys have got to react to what's happened behind them. Cameron Searle, Geek and Matimumu have already all been through the pits. These guys are just going to be losing time hand over fist at this stage. They've got to be in for a new set of boots, surely.
Rebel going around the outside of a Mercedes through turn 4 in Austria. I've never seen it before in my life. And now we see
Joe got very close there.
Getting rather close to that wall, and Joe Desan locking up there, going into the pit lane. Almost a pit lane speeding infringement there as well. But maybe penalty, or just about missing out on a penalty there.
Matimumu goes through. Ice has been disqualified for going the wrong way. I saw the Red Bull was stopped going through turn 4.
Oh.
He's very far off in the gravel. We're not going to get a safety car for this because he's already been disqualified. And unless I jinx it, which I really hope I haven't, because that's going to really screw with the race so far. Joe takes over the provisional lead of this race ahead of Matimumu and Cameron Searle. Jareki, who pitted fairly early, I think, is up into 4th ahead of Dazan and RWB. Geek is right on the back of RWB, so it's kind of worked out for him, in fact. Pitting early, he's got that undercut to work. He's in 7th, but he's right in the DRS range of the Mercedes in front. I think we'll be thinking about making that move anytime soon. Ice has left the session. Don't blame me, son. That's not ideal. He disconnected and that kind of ruined his race. Joe out in front ahead of his teammate, the 2 Williams leading the way. I think Joe will be into the pits on this lap, or potentially the next one for a set of medium tyres to take him to the end of this race. Matimu's got 4 seconds in hand over Cameron Searle. That big undercut he went for has got in the track position. It's now just a matter of whether his tyres can hold on till the end of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, looks like Ice just got disqualified there. Probably spun out and tried to rejoin the track, and the game just detected that he went the wrong way. I'm not sure what happened there, but it could have worked out very well for the likes of Joe and Matimumu and Cameron Sell, who, well, obviously Matimumu pitted, but Joe and Cameron Sell have not so far, and just waiting for an opportunity to pounce and get into the pit lane for a fresh set of tyres.
8.5 seconds the gap out in front. Joe obviously with that pit stop to make as Geek gets past RWB. That's been a couple of laps coming. Two different tyre compounds, medium versus hard. The new mediums are going to be better than the new hards at this stage, and Geek looking to recover from another brown pants moment earlier on in the session, down in 6th after that big snap on the exit of turn 1. Threw him with it into the grass. Was very lucky he didn't pick up any damage. Up into 6th place now. We'll set about catching Dazan and Jaraki in front. I'm not sure if Jaraki's been into the pits. Could we get that confirmed potentially if the Alfa Romeo has been into the pits? Because he hasn't. He's doing a very good job. With Joe now into the pits on lap 21. That is going to be for the medium tyres. We'll see where he feeds out. Cameron Searle is catching Matimumu very quickly. Got much fresher medium compound tyres, which will explain the delta between the two drivers. Matimumu is going to take the lead of this race, but Cameron Searle down to 2.5 seconds now. Jaraki has pitted, but on very old medium tyres. That must be a two-stopper for the Alfa Romeo driver. We'll see as Alfa Romeo decide what their strategy will be. He's got Dazan all over the back of him. Joe's going to come out in 7th place. Lost a lot of track position, but has the freshest tyres. So we've got a lot of different tyre strategies going on. And in the last 14 laps, I think this could be very exciting.
Dazan just making up a place there from Jaraki as a DRS overtake into the braking zone off turn 3. Now cresting up over the top of the back straight and possibly making for possibly making for a look through into turn 4, but just backing out of that and thinking just to fight another day. Joe coming out very very low there into 7th, but he's 2 seconds off of Geek, but he can definitely make those places up, as his pace does seem to be all right so far. But obviously with Geek just sitting there with his race ruined after that spin.
Well, he's left himself with a lot of work to do, Joe, here, as we're going to pay the respect to Alfa as he's going to go for an ambitious move up the inside of Wilson into the penultimate corner. Gets it done nicely. Wilson with a hatful of penalties to add to his troubles as well. That was pretty easy. Alfa gets a penalty on the exit. That is not ideal for the McLaren driver. I think he's going to be fairly comfortable in 8th place, barring any major whoopsies in the last 13 laps or so. Cameron Searle catching very quickly. We've got a big train for him behind what is Dazan, but is caused by Jaraki, who is on the oldest tyres of our top 7. But yeah, Joey's left himself a lot of work to do, but will have the fastest tyres. I think he will be mounting a charge come to the end of the Grand Prix. The gap between Dazan and Cameron Searle is 4.5 seconds though. That's he's got a bit of a mountain to climb, and I think it could just be a 2-horse race, or maybe even a 1-horse race, because Matimumu is on very old hard tyres compared to the newer mediums. But Cameron Searle, he's catching very quickly and is almost in DRS range.
Yeah, Matimumu looking like he's made the right strategy call here, as he could probably break out of DRS range if he picks up the pace a little bit more and just eats into those tyres a bit. As Cameron Searle are currently on the medium tyres and possibly hopefully making them work. As Joey gets a 3-second time penalty, most likely for track limits again. This race is just a war of attrition, really. Just making sure that you keep it clean, stay inside the white lines, and making sure that you don't get another track limits violation. As RWB has a DRS overtake onto Jaraki there as well, and Geek just looking through, maybe thinking about an overtake onto Jaraki there as well.
Anyone fancy a battle for the lead? Because I think it's going to be happening very shortly. You can see Cameron Searle had the DRS there. Matimumu with a big slide on the exit of turn 4. And that's all the invitation that Cameron Searle need. And he is up into the lead of the Grand Prix for the second time in this race. Matimumu makes the mistake after being put under pressure. And the Williams drops down into second place. Cameron Searle is, I think, going to soar off into the distance now on faster tyres and fresher tyres.
I was hoping there for Matimumu to keep Cameron Searle just behind him a little bit longer there for possibly some dive bombs into turn 3, but it looks like he just had a bit of a moment coming out through turn 5, and Matimumu Cameron Searle saw that and said thank you very much and took that place rather easily.
Cameron Searle has got a fight on his hands though, because Matimumu, as we've seen previously, does not give up. Wilson picks up another penalty using the DRS to his advantage, Matimumu, to try and stay close to the back of the AlphaTauri. I don't think at this stage he's going to want to try and overtake him, because Cameron Searle will have the pace. In Matimumu's case, he just wants to get towed along effectively by the AlphaTauri in front, which will open out the gap to the guys behind, which is still sat at 4.5 seconds, although RWB under pressure from Geek, Jaraki and Joe. The hard tyre is not working particularly well at this stage. It must be a little bit cool out there in the Austrian Alps, as Cameron Sell has this lead of 6/10 over Matamu, then 4.5 seconds back to Dazan. And further back, any interesting battles going on? Everyone's a little bit spread out, apart from the battle for the wooden spoon between GWS and Assassin, separated by just a couple of tenths. Geek is on the move, though. I think he's going to be getting past RWB any time now in the battle for 4th and 5th. Joe gets past Jaraki going into the penultimate corner. I think that was pretty easy for the Williams. Jaraki didn't fight that too hard on much older medium tyres. I can't believe that Jaraki's going to go to the end here. That would be an impressive effort on those tyres that would have had to do 20 laps by the time we get to lap 36. I'd be amazed if they don't puncture if he does go to the end, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Meanwhile, for 4th and 5th, here comes Geek around the outside. This should be fairly straightforward, although RWB, does he fight it? No. Geek clean around the outside, up into 4th place, leaves a space on the inside, and that might actually open the Mercedes up to a potential assault down into turn 4. He's left the door open, Geek, for RWB to potentially take this place back, but I think he's going to hold on. Geek up into 4th place, doing well to recover from that earlier whoopsie. He's got 2 seconds to Dazan and then another 4 and a bit seconds to our leading duo. I think it's going to be too much work to do for Geek and Joe, and Cameron Searle and Matamumu are going to be the ones fighting for this race win come 10 laps time.
Oh, dear. All right. Yeah, this looks like the Packers now just separate themselves out just a little bit enough for DRS, just to become a bit ineffective there. As now Cameron Sell just trying to inch his way out of DRS range of Matamu, but he's just keeping it there, just saying, no, I'm here, I want P1, but he has on much older tyres on.
Contact was that? Well. Was that contact? I think RWB might have outbraked himself, gone straight into the back of Geek, who also went off into turn 1. Jaraki into the pits for a new set of soft tyres, but Geek and RWB both going wide at turn 1 after potentially contact under braking. That's given Joe a potential opportunity to get past both of them. We could be seeing 3 wide on the run down to turn 4. Geek with 2 tenths over RWB, the same 2 tenth gap back to the Williams behind. No DRS for the McLaren. RWB sits behind. Joe's going to send it out the inside. RWB is a little bit spooked by the Williams committing up the inside. Is he going to hold on to 5th? Yes, he does. Joe with a late lunge to try and put the Mercedes off. It almost worked for him as RWB had another brown pants moment. We've had a few of them in this race. RWB thinking the Williams was going to go smashing into the side of his Mercedes and got out of the way. Opened the door, rolled out the red carpet, but Joe wasn't able to capitalise.
It looks like Joe just almost lost it under braking there, and RWB just getting very spooked by that move as now they come through and completely 28 of 36 laps of this Grand Prix. Now these 3 right here seems to be very, very feisty indeed, trying to sort themselves out for P4 in this race. But it looks like Geek just consolidating himself to the Mercedes of RWB, and he gets through. But Geek goes for the switchback, and now he is in DRS of RWB and gets past almost simply as he go almost 3 abreast, 2 through, and Joe gets 2 in that one corner, but maybe Geek fighting it back as now they slot in rather nicely into the braking zone of turn 6.
Opportunistic stuff from Joe, but it was brilliant stuff from Joe and the Williams going around the outside of both of them. Geek gets a second 3-second penalty in this race. That's going to probably resign him. Well, maybe not. Cancel that as RWB picks up a penalty as well. Joe with a brilliant opportunistic move around the outside of both of them later on the brakes. Had a lot more confidence going into turn 4, up into 4th place. Can he chase after the leading 3? The podium's probably out of reach with that 3-second penalty, but we don't know how many warnings the 3 cars in front are on. Cameron Searle leads this by nearly 3 seconds. He's pulling away from Matamumu at a rate of knots. We'll have to wait and see if the hard tyres come back to him. RWB's off the road again for the second time in 3 laps at turn 1. He's really struggling with those tyres at the moment. Has the DRS, but is going to be nowhere near Geek going up the hill into turn 3. Can Geek think about maybe getting past Joe again, although there is a 4-lap age difference in these tyres, so I think Joe's going to be fairly comfortable for the rest of this Grand Prix as they chase after Dazan in 3rd place. On the hard tyres, the Red Bull, who is catching Matamu as well. Those hard tyres that he's had on for 16 laps, I think, starting to struggle. Matamu, we might see fall into the clutches of the drivers behind.
Yeah, if I was a top 3 right now, I would be smiling very much underneath my helmet or wheel, as everyone behind you has quite a number of penalties stacked up on them, as Wilson has 21 seconds worth of time penalties to serve at the end of this race. Monumentous number there for the Ferrari driver, as Geek almost getting out of shape there again, and RWB thinking maybe he's struggling just a little bit more than he is on those tyres.
You can see how hard all of these drivers are pushing. They are flat out 100% to the end of this race as we've started lap 30. But yeah, 21 seconds worth of penalties. I'm surprised Wilson hasn't been disqualified yet. I'm not sure what the maximum number of 3-second penalties you can have, but he's picked up 7 over the course of the 30 laps so far. That's at least 21 track limit warnings and potentially a few more. So not been ideal for him. RWB may be shaping up a move on Geek down into turn 4, but a little bit too far back. These guys are actually struggling to catch up to the cars in front. Dazan's got really good pace in third place, catching Matimumu hand over fist. I think we could be seeing a swap for second and third as Matimumu struggles on those old hard compound tyres with 6 laps to go.
Dazan now within striking range of Matimumu as Matimumu has dropped behind Cameron Sol, but it looks like Dazan's kept up pretty good pace as well from the leader of Cameron Sol. now as we're seeing as Geek just barely clinging onto DRS from Joe up in 4th place. Looks like he's just barely pulling his way out of that fight between the Mercedes and the fan driver and now RWB goes for a very nice move through into turn 3, under braking and keeping it very clean through there as well.
Here we go. We were talking about it. Dazan up the inside of Matimumu. That looked very easy. Matimumu not really with anything to fight with at this stage. The Williams drops down into 3rd place. Dazan, he's got a lot of work to do to try and catch Cameron Searle. He's got to be hoping the God, that's a difficult sentence. AlphaTauri drivers' tyres. That's a tongue twister if you've ever heard it. He's got to hope those medium tyres fall off the cliff in the final 5 laps of this Grand Prix. Otherwise, it's going to be a 3rd win of the season for Cameron Searle. And going into the season finale at Abu Dhabi puts him in a great position to win a 1st championship in the BUSR series. 4.5 seconds the gap. Joe, 3.5 seconds behind this pair. Then it's RWB and Geek. 12 seconds the gap back to Alpha with Jaraki on the soft tyres. Closing ever so much on the previous few laps. 7.5 seconds that gap between 7th and 8th. Wilson in 9th with those 21 seconds worth of penalties. It's almost like the McLaren Honda days of grid penalties, where you had Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button taking like 65 place grid penalties going into the race as Matimumu gets his braking all wrong going into turn 3 and goes too deep, and that's going to wreck any chance he would have had at taking 2nd place back down this back straight.
I think if I remember correctly, it was 21 grid pace penalties for Stoffel Van Dorn in the 2017 British Grand Prix. Started right down at the back of the grid with no possible hope of doing anything as his engine blew up in that race as well.
Typical McLaren Honda. That was the story of that partnership. The Papaya car's doing a little bit better now, it has to be said though, with the Mercedes engines in the back of the cars, and Geek will be hoping to try and do a little bit better in this race as he hunts 4th place over Joe and RWB. He's got to be hoping that the 2 drivers in front pick up another 3-second penalty though. Otherwise it is going to only be 6th place for Geek, and that's probably going to be championship over. Matimumu is pushing so hard. He's trying to find the limits of this car and almost going over them. He has a massive slide going through turns 1 and up towards turn 3. He's pushing really hard to try and get this 2nd place back from Dazan. Big difference in tyre age between these 2 drivers. Gap out in front is 5 seconds. Cameron Searle looking very comfortable with only a few laps to go. Will the Williams driver think about a move to try and get 2nd place back here? Will Dazan go defensive? No, he doesn't. Cameron Searle a little bit too far back to make an optimistic lunge into turn 4, and it's going to be Dazan from Matimumu for the time being. 4 seconds the gap behind. The medium tyres just are not working for everyone. If your name is not Cameron Searle, he's the only one that's really made the medium tyres work, because Joe has got newer medium tyres than Dazan and Matimumu, has actually lost time over his stint.
Yeah, it looks like Joe's just falling back a little bit and maybe just consolidating himself with P4 in this race, as he looks like as he seems rather comfortable in that position. As obviously with that 3-second time penalty, he's nowhere near capable of getting P3 in this race, unless something massive happens in the latter stages. Maybe a safety car might come out any bit now, any second now, but I doubt that's going to happen.
It's going to have to come out this lap, which I do doubt, unless we see a huge crash between two of the battles we've got going on inside the top 6. It is. It would be spectacular.
Maybe we can see Matty Mumus doing something, but it looks like he's just trying to play the waiting game at this point now as he has come through into the third to last lap of this race. Just thinking maybe he can just hang on a little bit and stay within DRS range and possibly go for a rather opportunistic lunge down into either 1, 3, or 4.
Joe is still holding on to 4th, but I don't think that's really going to be enough for him. He hasn't got the... he is the championship contender that hasn't had a stinker of a race so far, but he's not really having the flagship results that he needs. I think going into the final race, it's going to be one of Cameron Searle, Dazan, or Matty Mumu that's going to take this championship. Obviously, Matty Mumu is a previous winner. It will be a first BUSR F1 Series championship for Cameron Searle or Dazan, I do believe. But return to this battle as we start the penultimate lap. Is Matty Mumu going to have a go into turn 3? No, sits behind. They've got to be careful of the Ferrari, who is going to be a lap down in front of them. That might give the driver that is in front going on to the final lap a helping hand if they can pick up the DRS. Although, is this Matty Mumu's moment? He goes up the inside. Dazan doesn't really fight it, surprisingly, as they've got a big margin to the cars behind. You can pass it a little bit harder. Dazan trying to come back around the outside. Matty Mumu probably wasn't expecting that. There's a little bit of contact on the exit of the corner. The Red Bull's going to hold on up the inside of turn 6. Matty Mumu sends it around the outside to try and keep hold of it. He doesn't end up in the gravel on the outside, but he's not got the room on the outside, and Dazan manages to hold on to that position. Really good defensive driving as we begin to start the final lap of this race. Look at the overspeed that Matty Mumu's got coming out of that corner, though. Must have a lot of battery saved up from the laps he spent sat behind the Red Bull. Dazan, I think, has drained a little bit of it. We'll see if the ERS light is flashing as they come around the final corner to start the final lap. Cameron Searle's got 6.5 seconds over these two. Matty Mumu, I really hope we don't see a move down into turn 1, because that would really hurt my brain, and we don't. I think it's going to be a DRS overtake up the hill into turn 3 to take second place. Look at him going defensive. Is Matty Mumu going to get this place? Yes, he is, but he's going to have to be careful that Dazan doesn't slipstream back past him on the run down to turn 4.
We don't know how many track limit warnings these guys are on, and possibly might even see 1 or 2 being picked up. But it doesn't look like it, as Matty Mumu's doing very well to keep that P2 right now. As we now move on to the fight between Joe, Geek, and RWB. We haven't really been keeping an eye on this one as Joe has dropped 2 places down, but he's trying to look for a move against Geek as he goes a little bit square through turn 5, and now as Joe just goes down the inside into turn 6 and gets that place back against Geek, and now is looking at RWB thinking maybe he can make a move down into the last corner of this.
Dazan's got Matty Mumu in the penultimate corner. Cameron Searle wins, but Dazan with a shock overtake on the penultimate corner of the last lap to get second place. That could be crucial. Joe's going to end up in 5th behind RWB as he picks up another penalty. RWB, brilliant run to 4th place in this race. Shows some great pace ahead of Joe and Geek, who had 6 and 9 seconds worth of penalties respectively. But yeah, Joe was gazumped by the 2 drivers going on to the final lap. Managed to get back past Geek in what was a bit of a grudge match between the 2 of them after some sparring going on earlier in the season. Alpha will come home in 7th ahead of Jarek. He wasn't able to make the most of that 2-stop strategy. Wilson will come home in 9th, but with his 21 seconds of penalties is going to lose quite a few positions. He drifts out of the final corner, will finish 9th on the road, but I think will probably come home in 12th, and it will be the 2 Ferraris picking up the wooden spoon, which the Tifosi won't be too pleased about. Aria will come home in 11th, but should get bumped up ahead of Wilson. We'll see as he comes up to the line. Aria over the line, no, stays in 11th, and it'll be Assassin who will pick up some places over the line. And that is our Austrian Grand Prix, and that was very exciting. Cameron Searle picks up driver of the day. I think that is entirely justified. A 3rd win of the season for Cameron Searle. Catapults himself perfectly into championship contention going into the final race. And what a statement that is going into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Cameron Searle is back on top after a couple of races off the top step of the podium. A 3rd win of the season. Is probably going to be favourite going into that season finale. Matty Mumu, that could be crucial. Losing that place to Dazan on the final lap. He'll not like that. I presume we'll speak to him later on this evening to see what his thoughts on that are. But yeah, I think these drivers that we're seeing on the podium are the 3 we're going to be dueling for the championship next weekend.
Yeah, it looks like Matty Mumu just holding on to first there in the championship sense, however. But Cameron Searle just looking very
I think we have lost. I think we have lost your audio there, Alex, which is not ideal. Hopefully that does come back. While we wait, though, just to discuss a couple of things. The race we saw was really good. Interview-wise, I think obviously we had a sprint race, so we've been going for quite a while. So we won't speak to everyone, even though that would be quite the exciting conversation to have with people. I think we'll speak to our top three. Cameron Sell returning to the top step of the podium after I think 3 races off the top step. And had a retirement in there as well. Matti Mumu will be so disappointed with what happened there, ending up in 3rd place. He was odds-on favourite to take 2nd after Dazan didn't manage to hold on to that on the penultimate lap. He couldn't break away and drop back into 3rd. Do we have you back, Alex? I think we do.
looks like it. Yeah, I just had a couple of technical issues. Looks like my cables are at the end of their lifespan. But yeah, it looks like Cameron Salt and Matti Mumu are going to be battling out at the Abu Dhabi next weekend for the final race of this season. Very interesting season so far. With Joe just about keeping himself in contention there, but dropping out very sadly onto the last on that last lap there, losing out on P4 in that race. And now Dazan looks like he will be in spitting distance of the two at the top there of Matamura and Cameron. But I'm not sure if he'll be able to make it up there. Last year, Matamura had a very good race despite the last lap incident after the safety car restart. I don't know if you'd remember that, but that was a very unfortunate mix-up, you might say, where Joe lost out on the championship there.
Yeah, that was crazy. I remember that. I was commentating on that race. It was absolute. It was limbs everywhere to watch. If we do get the standings updated by the time the interviews are conducted, obviously it will be provisional. There could be some penalties that need to be handed out post-race, but we'll get that to you because it is going to be quite the title fight going into the final race of the Winter Series. And so we're hoping to cap off 2020. That was not right. 2023, not 2023. With a championship win. We'll just wait for our interviewees to join us, though. It will be the top 3 out of 10. How would you rate that race?
That was a very interesting race. I must admit the pack spread out quite a bit to the end, but the couple of little groupings of drivers there, just within DRS range, was able to fight it out to the very end, especially with Cameron, Matty and Tassan and Joe, Geek and RWB just battling out there to the bitter end there. Very unfortunate from the Ferrari drivers, as they had a very good sprint but dropped back massively in the race start.
Yeah, and I think we might have had the record for most number of penalties in one race with 21 seconds for Wilson. I think there was a race where I think we had someone pick up quite a lot in the past. I think it was Monaco during the summer where someone a lot of penalties, but I'm not sure if we've ever seen 21 seconds. Interview time, though. Matti Mumu finished 3rd in that race, and here's who we are going to be speaking to first. Matti, hello. A podium of 3rd place, but I think you would have probably been hoping for a bit more.
It was close. I had to try something in the main race. The train was far too slow and boring. So I was like, you know what, let's pit, see how this goes. And I was pretty convinced, in fact, after turn 4 that I got 2nd place. But apparently Descent had other ideas, so it's 3rd place. But yeah, it was a good weekend overall. No mistakes, really. So yeah.
Another clean one, which has been a rarity this season, which will be nice for you. On that final lap overtake, were you how much were you expecting it? Because it's not a traditional overtaking point going into the penultimate corner. So were you aware of it? And also, how much battery did you have left?
Yeah, I think that's why he knew I was vulnerable, because I was running on fumes in the battery department on that point. I was below 10%, so the rear light would have been flashing for me, and he obviously had a lot more in reserve. I didn't defend the inside in case he turned in on me on the outside and wiped me out, and then no one gets a podium from that. But it was a good move from him. Yeah, no, no complaints really. Yeah, it was a good move from him, pretty much.
Could potentially prove crucial with Cameron Sale taking the win. Slashes your championship lead a little bit going into the final race. But you feeling confident going into Abu Dhabi?
Yes, especially
Good.
after the sprint race. Gaining 5 points on Cameron was helpful. I think after the sprint race it was a 33-point gap, and now it will be 21, which allows me to finish 4th if he wins without fastest lap. So knowing that is feeling quite comfortable. Yeah, I just now have to try and drive in a straight line until the checkered flag.
Keep it on the black stuff, as Seb Vettel's engineer once said. Alex, do you have anything you want to ask our third place finisher?
It's just very, very interesting sort of strategy choices there. I must admit the one stop looked to work out quite well in your favour. I must admit the early pit onto the hard tyre there. Was that something that you had thought of or practiced before, or was that just straight out of intuition?
A bit of tyre knowledge from the sprint race and some practices that we've been doing, knowing that the softs and the mediums didn't really wear, so surely the hards won't at all. And I could tell how quickly the cars outside of the train were catching up, that it was probably a good thing to get out of it. And when I came out about 6 seconds ahead of everyone that was in the train, I was thinking, oh, that's cool. And then they just drove fast. But yeah, I think it's still worth taking the risk. Yeah, I wouldn't change it again if I could replay that race. So I think I'd just do the same thing.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, yeah, the strategy did work out
Apologies
at
to my
one point. It
camera.
looked like potentially the big undercut you went for was going to work, but third place isn't too bad. It does give you a margin for error going into the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, and we wish you the best of luck for that title decider.
Thank you.
We will see Matamu next week, but now we will bring in our runner-up, Dazan, who came home in second place after a very, very impressive overtake on the final lap to get that second place right at the death. Dazan, hello. Firstly, I want to ask you about that overtake on the final lap. Pre-planned or pre-planned, or was it a last-minute decision?
I was ahead going into lap 36. Be able to get the position done before turn 4, but that didn't happen. So at that point, is my mic okay?
I think, yeah, we have still got you.
Okay, that's fine. But I was still on about 30-ish% battery, and I saw that Matty was flashing, so I knew I had to get a very good launch out of turn 8 to actually get the overtake done, but I got that, and it was just going to be an overtake there.
Well, it was a really good move. Obviously, not a traditional place to overtake on the track. So very well done. It could be crucial for the championship, taking a few points off our championship leader. The race as a whole, though, the pace seemed okay. Obviously, weren't able to catch Cameron Sale in that final stint, who seemed to be one of the only drivers that could make the mediums really work for him. But promising signs from the pace, and hopefully sets you up fairly nicely going into the season finale, although you do have a little bit of a mountain to climb going into it.
Yeah.
If you are speaking, we don't currently have your audio.
Is that fine? God.
I think if you try again, we'll see if that works.
Is this?
We have got you. Yes, we have got you.
All right. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I'll stay like this. Okay. Can you ask the question again, please?
So going into the final race, the pace this weekend was fairly decent, although you weren't able to make the inroads on Cameron Sell that you potentially would have liked. But you do also have a bit of a mountain to climb going into that season finale.
Yeah, Miami didn't help that. I think I might be in the lead if not for that. But yeah, Abu Dhabi, I've not done too much on it, but it seems like a track I'd be pretty good at, and I've got time to practice. So I'll go for the win, and if that's not enough, then that's not enough. But I'll do my best.
Yeah, your best is always the most you can do, and it has been a very competitive season from you. Been in the title fight for a long time. What's been your highlight so far?
Ooh,
Put you on the spot slightly.
Probably the Spain win. Not necessarily because it was like I fought really hard on track to win or anything, but that was just my best pace maybe I've ever done in league racing, especially in the wet, where I had to essentially learn what it was like to drive in the wet there, and I was just very quick there. So that was the highlight.
Yeah, I do remember that was a bit of a dominant performance from you, and probably set up those back-to-back wins you picked up in the midpoint of the season. But very well done today. Second place, brilliant overtake on the final lap to take that second place off Matthew, and we wish you the best of luck going into next week's finale.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alex, are you here, by the way? We've obviously had some slight camera issues, but
if my camera wants to stay alive, that would be great. Thank you. Yes.
Excellent.
That was a bit annoying. Okay. Yeah. Just a quick update on the standings. It looks like we're just having them coming right now. Matamumu leading with 580 points from Cameron Sell with 559 with a 21-point gap difference there. Joe make up to 523 and Dasan 524. Dasan just pissing up Joe at P3 by 1 point there. It looks like Dasan is just going to be barely keeping it in. Joe and Dasan barely keeping it in a title fight there against Matamumu and Cameron Sell, but obviously those two being the favourites coming into Abu Dhabi, with Jericho up to up to 482 points after that. Very, very poor performance in that, but coming up with 6 second time penalties against Joe and RWB with 3 second time penalties. Sorry.
Yeah, but we also just need to remember that Joe hasn't used a proper drop round. He's still been having some of his better results taken off. So that is something to bear in mind. He has actually got the most points of all of our drivers, but he loses, I think it's 75 points he loses, with that being his worst race. It could be an interesting dynamic to see what happens going into the final race with the Joe situation. But returning to this race, we are going to bring in our race winner, Cameron Searle, who drove brilliantly after a difficult start to the weekend. Cameron Searle coming back to finish what was a pretty dominant performance.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I think the start, I don't know if it felt early, but that was probably me just being slow at the start. So I wasn't quite ready and got bullied a bit into turn one, I should say. But then, yeah, I think I worked my way back up and then got the undercut at the right time. And then cheekily dropped Matty back into Dasan at the end.
Well, it was interesting because the sprint didn't necessarily go your way. I think you got the timing of the switch to soft tyres slightly wrong. But you seem to be the only driver in the main race that actually got the medium tyres working, managed to prolong them for the entirety of the stint.
Yeah, they fell away with about 3 laps to go. Probably a bit like Dasan in the first stint. And RWP as well, who was the other one at the front. But I think by then they had the traffic that I didn't have to deal with, and I was just able to look after them a bit more second stint as opposed to have to push flat out.
Yeah, it was a really impressive pace, that second stint, pulling time over Matamumu. You got past him with relative ease as well. So a very morale boosting performance, I'd like to say, but it's been a very strong season from you. Going into the finale, you have provisionally you've got 21 points you need to make up. It's going to be difficult, but how do you fancy your chances at Abu Dhabi? Obviously, it's going to be a challenge for you to get that championship, but how do you feel about it?
It's not my worst track. It's definitely not my best track. It's a weird one. I've just got to hope I have a clean weekend and that Matty doesn't, to put it that way. Yeah.
Well, we've seen Abu Dhabi throw up some surprises in the past, so I wouldn't put anything past it. And we wish you the best of luck for it. Alex, anything you want to say to our race winner?
That was a very dominant race on the second stint there. After you picked it up for the medium tires, how were you able to keep those alive for so long in that race with Matty and Hassan chasing you down, only just to back out and fight each other for P2 and 3?
Yeah. In that first bit, I did push at the start to try and catch up to Matty on new heat because he got a huge undercut. So his tyres very much fell off, and I didn't want to get caught up in that. Once I got past, I think it was about 3 laps of him keeping up, and then his tyres hit a cliff. From that point, I just switched to tyre management and stopped fully pushing and started pushing with ERS balancing as opposed to trying to save that. Whereas I think the other guys were having to push in the corners, which was eating their tyres just that little bit more. But yeah, they still fell off 3 laps to go anyway. So
a very good race there from after they started to fight each other, and the pace management there was absolutely incredible for what we could see on our end.
Thank you, guys.
Well, yeah, very well done. A third win of the season, I do believe. You have a little bit of a decent whack of points to make up going into the finale, but we wish you the best of luck and congratulations on another very good victory.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 7 rounds done. We have 1 more to go in Abu Dhabi. It's been the home of some controversial moments in the BUSR and in real life, of course. And title fight, it's Mathieu's got a big cushion to work with, but anything can happen going into the final race. And I am very excited to see what happens.
Yeah, we've got Mathieu and Cameron Sell just there in almost in their own little pocket, but Joe and Desan just keeping themselves almost within that title fight. But they'll need a miracle to happen for either of those 2 drivers to be within earshot of the championship. It does it though, but that Matty Moomin has a very comfortable cushion to sit on, where if he finishes 4th in the race and Cameron Sell finishes 1st, he would still win the drivers' championship.
Going to be an interesting dynamic to see what happens. I wonder if the 2 Williams teammates are going to have a bit of teamwork going on there. We'll see what happens next week, of course, for the season finale of the F1 Winter Series. But that has been it from us in Austria. It's been a long one this evening. Sprint race, of course, been going for near 2 hours. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Saw some really good racing action, and Cameron Sell taking a very impressive race victory. We will see you next week. From myself, Tom, it's been a pleasure commentating this week. I will say goodbye and hand you over to Alex.
And yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure again, as always, and I will be there commentating the next race at Abu Dhabi as well. I'm Alex, and I will see you guys in a bit.
Houston, if you're ready, we'll maneuver. Reaching out. Rainbow Road.
and no moment in history where I could stand and say, oh, British begins here, now.